Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers. This is our midweek show. We're calling it the Pick 6 midweek show, for lack of a better word, where we're going to go over 6 topics that we pull out of the week that we just left and gets us in transition to the week ahead. And welcome in, Keith. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yeah, Pick 6. This is a new little segment idea that we're going to try with. And if it becomes something that the Seahawks quarterbacks end up doing a lot, we'll have to change the name. But with Russell Wilson and the way he played and the way the offense was designed by Shane Waldron, I don't expect it to be a thing. But I'm just saying.
You can look at it glass half full or glass half empty, Keith. And I'm going with the glass half full because I think the defense is going to generate those turnovers and we're going to get the pick sixes and we're taking it to the house. So it can go either way. You've got to be an optimist, man. The way the defense is playing, the way that they started against the Colts, I'm optimistic. Now, we didn't have interceptions and all that kind of stuff because Carson Wentz kind of took care of the ball, even though we had him under pressure constantly. I think that the way the defense plays, the style that they play, the disruption that they cause, and all that pressure and those quarterback hits that we had, eventually that's going to pay off, I think, and start to generate some turnovers.
No, and I agree. And I mean, Wentz did a great job of taking care of the football. I mean, the Seahawks pressured him and hit him and all those things, and he never really, made the big mistake or took the big risk. He was really careful with trying not to turn the ball over. But the defensive line did its job and got the pressure, and they're going to play quarterbacks that are not going to handle the pressure as well as Carson Wentz did.
Yeah, interesting. So let's start the show with just kind of catching you up on some injuries. I only have 3 here. D. Eskridge and Penny Hart are both in concussion protocol. Mm-hmm. That hit on D. Eskridge was kind of borderline to me. I thought the guy came in a little high, where Eskridge was already kind of held up. Well, he was kind of being held up in the air, and then the other guy came in. It was kind of a tag team effort, and I didn't appreciate that. He could have easily just kind of shoved him out of bounds, which would have been more appropriate. But he was looking to lay the hit on him, and he did, and kind of caught Eskridge with the helmet to helmet a little bit.
See, and that's the thing is there are times when the receiver starts to go down on their own before the player gets there, and they just can't get low enough to avoid the head. And it's, to me, that's on the offensive player, and I don't think it should be a penalty because they're going down. This wasn't the case here. He was getting held up by another player. He couldn't go down. He couldn't avoid the hit. He also wasn't, had kind of reached a point where, just a little push out of bounds would have been enough, but he came in with the head to hit Eskridge's head. It just, I didn't appreciate it. I thought it was.
I didn't appreciate it either. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if he gets a fine for that.
Yeah, he should.
And then Penny Hart, I didn't see that concussion happen. But Penny Hart only took like 2 or 3 handoffs, and that was about it, or pass catches. Which one do you know?
He didn't have.
He didn't have anything.
No, okay. It was for him, like he got hurt. I think it was on the opening kickoff.
Oh, okay. I didn't even see it, so I wasn't paying attention. And then Rashad Penny. We can talk about that a little bit. You sounded a little disgusted there. It's going to take a little bit of time to figure out what the return will be on that, according to Pete Carroll. That's a quote.
I'm sorry. Was that sigh that noticeable through the microphone?
That was a CJ Pro size sigh, if I ever saw one.
Oh, God. I mean, like the thing is, he was kind of banged up in the week before, and he got in there to play, but he made it through like 2 plays, and then had that calf injury is what we thought it was, but now they're saying it might not be, and it might be something that's a little longer. And I made the point if he was healthy this week, they should have traded him to Baltimore, who is desperate for a running back during the 15.
Keith, I lost your vocal again. Yeah, no doubt. They should have traded him, but they didn't. And they held on to him. Now it's going to be Pete Carroll came in and basically said, unfortunately, it takes him a couple of weeks. Then we'll have to figure out how to handle that, which means he's talking about IR, of course. And so when you put Penny on IR, that kind of really takes away his ability to have any sort of value on the trade market, and it's just not a great thing. It wouldn't surprise me if they create some sort of release and pay him to go away at this point, because especially if Collins comes in his stead and does what we believe that Collins should be doing, which is being available, and when he's in there, he's very effective. And so I would imagine that'll be the tandem this team runs with going forward.
Yeah, I mean, there's also DJ Dallas, who only had 1 run, but it went for 5 yards, and the just explosive nature of him and his ability to accelerate really quickly definitely is exciting, and I'm intrigued to see him more. But yeah, and Collins is the other one. You're right. I don't see him being released there, but they may stick him on IR and just be like, you know what, you're there till the end of the year, and then go find yourself another team.
I mean, they could pull him back. I mean, he would be eligible to come back. So if they needed him and he was healthy, they would definitely bring him back. But my goodness, I feel for the guy, because it's not like it's in his control. I'm sure he's doing everything that he can to be healthy. I'm sure he's taking the advice of all the trainers, the stretching, the working out, the getting strong, all that kind of stuff. And it's just one of those things. I mean, he was healthy throughout his entire career in college and was highly used. I mean, he had 600-700 carries in the last 2 years. And he was available for every play, every game. Yeah. And we had Nick Chubb sitting there, and we had Rashad Penny sitting there in the draft, and they wanted to go running back first round. And it was, I can guarantee you, it was going to be one of those 2 players. And they went with the guy that they felt had the better medical check, and Rashad Penny, and was a dynamic runner in his own right in college. Yeah, at that level. But
both of them were good prospects coming out of college. Chubb maybe a little higher if in terms of his film, because he looked just as good, but against better competition. But he had that bad knee, and the medical checks were like, we don't know. And whereas Penny was like just never hurt. The coaches went on about how, he played his entire college career, never missed a practice, never missed anything. And so the Seahawks went with a healthier guy. And then they got to the pros, and it's like they swapped bodies, because Penny just cannot stay healthy. And, Chubb's been fine. He's been great. So it is what it is.
So today's show is.
Oh, you did miss one injury.
Oh, yeah?
Update. Yeah. CJ Procise.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. That's no.
I know.
I was just making a Rashad Penny joke. No, Ethan Posick is sprained his knee. So they started Fuller. Fuller
lost you again on the vocal, Keith. So just to finish your thought on Posick was in for 25% of the snaps. Came out. Fuller came back in and played 75% of the snaps, and actually looked really good. And it definitely would not surprise me if the team elects to go with Fuller going forward, because I just think that he's going to be a better player, more reliable, and it looks like he's kind of fitting into the offense. What do you think about Fuller, Keith?
I'm not a huge fan. I just don't see him as an elite player. I think that he keeps wanting to be and, tries real hard, but he just continues to struggle and just doesn't have that ability to hold up at the point of attack. I think Aaron Donald's going to just eat him alive.
Yeah, I don't even want to talk about that at this point.
At this point, Posick is just not a guy that's staying healthy. His whole pro career has been,
except for last year.
Even last year he picked up some injuries and missed some time, and when he came back, he wasn't as good because he was banged up. And it's just a struggle.
So let me ask you this. I just thought popped into my brain. So what if Lewis moves back over to center and we find another left guard? Is there anybody on the roster that could do that?
No. See, what I think is going to happen first is that Shepley is going to take over at center. He's now with Posick out. Now that time I did it on accident. No, with Posick out, Shepley becomes the backup. They brought him in.
Don't you worry about that? Just from the lack of experience and the size. I mean, Shepley's an undersized guy to begin with. Now, granted, he's going to be athletic and he's going to do really well on these zone kind of blocking things. But what about a guy like Donald, who's not going to care that Shepley's a great guy moving in space and all that stuff? All he needs to do is just basically shove him really hard and disrupt the interior pocket.
That's not any. Posick was terrible in that same regard, and so was Fuller. So of the three guys, Shepley, I think, has the higher ceiling, and the team likes him. I mean, they gave up on Phil Haynes, who they really liked and is super versatile across the interior of the line, because they needed to go get Shepley when he was available.
Yeah, that's somewhat fair, but the team didn't give up on Phil Haynes completely, and they needed to have their tackle of the future, the right tackle of the future, Cochran, or what's his name, the guy from Cal, be on the roster, and the rookie undrafted guy. And that's why I think they went with a guy who's younger with a little bit more upside. And Phil Haynes been in the system now for 3 years, and they've seen Phil Haynes, and they got him back on the practice squad, but we'll see.
Yeah, but Phil Haynes made the roster. He got cut so that Shipley could come in.
Yes.
And so it really was that. And so they believe in Shipley more as a center than Haynes.
True. But we haven't seen Shipley.
Yeah. I just think that I think we will, because I think Fuller is going. I mean, he's a backup center. He's not a guy with starter talent. So at some point they will make. I'm hopeful. But you and I both know, and we've both seen players added the day after roster cuts and last on a roster 1 or 2 weeks, and then have another guy come back in. Excuse me. To fill that void again. It just really depends on how he does in these 2 or 3 weeks of the initial being on the roster, and if he fits, and if the team really sees what they thought they were seeing on film. So today, in this particular case, because of Pete Carroll's comment and because of the fact that they love him. Yes. That is a good sign. That is a good sign. Yep. So the Pick 6 show idea is that Keith and I get together on a text message thread after the game, and we decide on 6 things that we want to talk about midweek show that left us with good impressions from the prior game, from the prior week, that will help transition us into the preview show to start the next week. And so today we're just going to go through the list. This isn't a scientific list by any means. This is just kind of a what do we feel like talking about list. And hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Hopefully it goes well and we kind of keep the segment. If it doesn't go well, and if Keith's point proves true and Russell Wilson starts throwing pick sixes like they're going out of style, we will change the name of this show. Just so you know. Russell Wilson, speaking of, let's start at the top. Russell Wilson in this offense, first game impressions, Keith. To me, he was ultra efficient, had a super high quarterback rating of over 150 this first outing, just had a few incompletions,
But otherwise,
Four
the touchdowns were just amazing.
4 touchdowns, 5 incompletions.
Yeah. So let's talk about Wilson. The entire off season, from the end of the season press conference until about the draft, was all about Russell Wilson and how unhappy he was, and that he just didn't want to be here. And his agent was giving the team a hard time, and listing out cities that if he were to be traded, these are the cities that he would want to go to coming full circle after the draft, where the marriage was reconciled between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. They were both saying all the right things, and that Shane Waldron and those folks were just getting along great. Everything was just super. So who do you believe? Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, Shane Waldron, the media? Turns out Russell Wilson, Shane Waldron on the exact same page, Pete Carroll, the whole thing. It looked really great going out first game and really kind of performing to at expectation level or exceeding expectations.
Oh yeah, I mean it looked outstanding. I can tell you when I was at camp and just kind of watching, things. You saw Pete Carroll joking with Russ, and Russ laughing at him, and them high fiving at times and whatever. And I'm like, these are not two guys that are pissed at each other or struggling with the relationship or any of that. So if there was any true animosity at any point, it was completely gone by the third day of camp. And so I think they're in a great place where they are now. And as long as the team continues to win and the offense continues to hum, there's no concerns. It's just everything looks good. So
the last year, during this same run, so the first 5 games, we were on a historic level as far as the passing situation was concerned. Russell Wilson was at the top of the heap on the MVP race. Everything was going just great. Now, the defense really was struggling, and it sucked, and Russell Wilson was carrying the team. There was no doubt about it. What's the difference between what's happening right now and what happened that first 5 games that gave us a whole bunch of hope last year? Why should it be any different this year?
Well, I mean, we have to wait and we have to let this play out, because what happened last year was that teams tried to attack Seattle in a particular way that didn't work, and it left the wrong people wide open for Wilson to find. The offensive line did enough, and Wilson was able to throw a bunch of long bombs to Metcalf and Lockett and do all those things. And then teams figured out, they're like, okay, so looking at the game tape, let's not do what they did, and instead, take away those plays and get after Wilson a little bit better. And that happened, and the offense never adapted, it never recovered, it never did anything. It just continued to try and run the same plays, but now against a defensive play call that was set up to stop it. And that's when everything kind of just went downhill for the offense, and it became a mess. Okay, so now they're got an all-new offense. Plays to Wilson's skill set's a little better. It's definitely better designed and better organized, and it's more dynamic. And you're forcing them to, defend more of the field. But at some point, teams are going to make adjustment to what Seattle's been doing. And does Waldron do what Schottenheimer couldn't? And that's adapt and continue to tweak and evolve and say, okay, you're going to take that away. Well, then that just leaves this other thing open, and we're going to get to that instead. And Schottenheimer refused to do that. He just
didn't have the ability,
or just didn't know what he was
doing. The cognitive skills to do it. Let's just say it out loud.
Yeah, and so
I know you were being very nice. I was
trying to be diplomatic and not just call him an idiot.
Well, let me move to a couple of things, couple points. 2 points, really. The use of play action in this game. So the Seahawks ended the game using play action 41.4% of the time, ranked second in the NFL in the first week. Pete Carroll had this to say about it. I thought what we did was phenomenal, man. Understanding the coverages that they were running, understanding their tendencies, the philosophies, all the things that they were trying to do. I thought we capitalized on it. We adjusted to it. We ran the ball the way that we wanted to. It opened up a lot of stuff in play action. We didn't always need to go deep. We went short at times. We went medium at times. I think that's the thing that's really going to help us out, because as you go into these next weeks and even into next week, teams are going to try to stop certain types of plays. But I think what we showed is that it doesn't matter who gets the ball. We're going to try to feed whoever and however, based off what it is that the defenses choose to give us.
And I think that is that's a fantastic quote, because that's what we've been asking for out of this offense for, well, let's see, it's been 7 years since 2014. And we just haven't done it. They haven't had it. And, Bevel's ability to adapt and adjust dropped off the longer he was here, and Schottenheimer didn't have it at all. So we'll see. And I think that the other part, I mean, this goes into, we might as well jump into point 2 in our pick 6. And that's going to be Shane Waldron's play design and all of that. They did not force the ball to DK Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
They said, you know what, you're going to rotate all that coverage and try and stop him. That just leaves Lockett wide open, or the tight ends, and we're going to go to them and let them be the guys that pick up all the yards, and the ball's going to move. And when you adjust to take away Lockett and or the tight ends, that's just going to leave Metcalf open, and he's going to feast on you later. And all those things happened. And so I really liked that. I really thought that when you have enough talent that you can shift away from your best, pass catching option, because the other guys can also get open once they roll all the coverage to Metcalf, it just makes life easy. And the teams, they can't take away everything. There's just too much talent on that offense.
Well, and that, to finish the thoughts we were just talking about as well, Pete continued, he said, I think the best thing that we've learned is just being able to take what the defense gives us. And that's what happened today. And I think 2 plays that really illustrated that was the blitz pickup that Russell Wilson had on the first touchdown play to Lockett. That wasn't pressing, and that was kind of a throw it up and let's see what happens play. But nonetheless, that was planned. That was an identified single coverage situation on Lockett, and Russ knew that he was going to have to get the ball out quick and just kind of put it up there where only Lockett could get to it, and he did. The other play was Lockett again, where they really went deep. The only play other than that touchdown, they went to Lockett for that, but it was completely unforced. Lockett ended up being wide open. These are the type of things. This is the type of shots that Pete was talking about in the offseason. We need to be more balanced. We need to do it this way. We need to do it the right way, so that when we're ready, we can take those shots. We're not forced to take those shots all game, because that's really the only place that Schottenheimer knows how to draw up. We're taking them strategically. And so that really kind of came out. I thought it was awesome. And just frankly, the way that the plays were actually designed, I thought was just masterful. I really am looking forward to seeing more of that.
Well, and there was a lot of plays where there was yard after catch, potential. Lockett caught that one touchdown and had just scamper down an extra 20 yards into the end zone, and in Everett's touchdown, he caught it with space in front of him.
And even his first reception for the picked up the first down, I thought was the same sort of, masterful kind of design.
Yeah. I really liked, one of the things I really liked was the second drive where, the Seahawks marched down the field and got that touchdown, and they had 4 passes to tight ends in that drive alone. First one was to Everett, then 2 to Disley, and then back to Everett for the touchdown.
How about the Disley play where he caught the ball and he just turned and looked at the defender and literally just pushed his face away and just said, it was "Get Off Me" part 2 from the historic Beast Mode Beastquake run. Get off me. That was like, get out of my way. You don't even matter. And then he just turned around and like started running again. I totally laughed out loud when I saw that. It was like,
that was
funny.
awesome. I loved it too. The other thing, like my wife wasn't looking up at the time. I'm like, no, you've got to watch this replay, because he does that, and I'm like, dude, he just told that guy to retire. I'm like, he just like, no, you know what, you just retire, you're done, and then ran off on him. And God, that was fun to see. Seeing a truly healthy Disley again, because last year he just wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
He was playing, and he played pretty well, especially as a blocker, but he just moved better in this game than he ever did last year.
Disley ran 20 pass routes this game. He wasn't just being inside blocking. This guy was actually used all over the field, which is, like you said, it was just excellent to see that. So let's go on to point number 3. And I've lost point number 3 in my thing, but I think it's pass rush.
It's
We're talking
about
pass rush.
Yeah.
Yep. So, outstanding. We talked a little bit about this in our post game review, but the 3 sacks, the 10 quarterback hits, the dozen or so pressures beyond that really put Carson Wentz on his heels the entire game. Never allowed him to be comfortable at all. Most of those hits, those 10 hits, were as he was letting go of the ball. I mean, it was just a great performance, I thought, overall.
Which was one of the things that I found interesting about that is they were getting pressure against a good offensive line. I mean, you got to remember that this is an offensive line that, yes, they were missing their left tackle, but the other 4 members are guys that are thought of as
Quentin Nelson's all pro, and then Mark Lewinsky has turned out to be a fine pro.
Once he decided he wanted to actually care about football, which wasn't the case here, but once he left, he did. He turned out to be pretty good too. I mean, their offensive line, at least the 4 guys that are supposed to be starters, they're good, and the pass rush did its job. It did its job without having to blitz. I mean, they did blitz here and there, but they didn't have to. And it also got the job done when they were playing with 3 defensive tackles on the field, because they actually went to a bear front where you had Ford, Monet, and Woods all on the field at the same time, because they were trying to stop Taylor, which is the other team's best offensive player. So of course you do that. But when you've got that means you're missing other things, right? And to get Puna Ford early and then Monet later, just getting upfield, getting pressure, not letting Wentz be comfortable, and giving the defensive ends an opportunity to get around the corner. That was really promising to see, that when you've got your run stuffers in there, that they're still able to collapse the interior of the pocket. That's going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, and I saw Quentin Nelson early kind of manhandle a couple of our defenders pretty well. And I was like, oh, this could be a long day if those guys are getting handled this early in the game. But after that, they really kind of settled in and did a great job.
That first drive was a struggle.
Excuse me.
That first drive was a struggle, especially, watching them keep the ball for 9 minutes. But after that, the Seahawks made some adjustments in the way that they attacked the gaps around Quentin Nelson, and they really Taylor came inside and basically blocked down so that we can have a twist and someone can get around the edge, and they did some things to make it so the one all pro guard just
was neutralized.
He wasn't as much of a factor. They were able to get stuff through, and I think they got him frustrated at times in there because the Seahawks were still getting pressure and they were still getting guys through, and once they started to feel it, you could kind of see it. They knew they were getting to the quarterback, and everyone was ready to attack.
Yeah, I thought one of the most impressive rushes the entire game was Taylor coming up with that 4th down sack.
He destroyed.
Yeah, in the 4th quarter.
Speaking about telling someone to retire, that right tackle. Sorry, dude, but that was that. I don't even.
Hey, I got a question. I got not to talk about another team, but did you see the quote from the lineman that from the Titans that was facing Chandler Jones all week or all game
No,
in that game. So Chandler Jones for the Cardinals ended up having 5 sacks against this guy. And this guy literally went on Twitter and publicly apologized. And he thanked Chandler Jones for literally dismantling him as a human being because it would only make him better in the future. And I thought that was just kind of wild. But, Carroll on the defensive line combinations said that, they were a product of the versatility on the edge players. He went on to say, we've been developing that ability for a while now to see how flexible we can be. We've had a number of guys that can do it all. We didn't need to see a whole lot of Alton Robinson today, but he's in the mix too. So let's talk about Alton Robinson. He's kind of the odd man out. You've got Hyder, Mayoa, Rasheem Green is better than we thought he was going to be this year. And then you've got the interior guys like Monet and those guys. Really, Alton Robinson's going to kind of get left out a little bit, at least the early going.
He's going to get some snaps. They're not going to leave him out completely, especially when they sat Collier as a healthy scratch. Collier played well last year, but it's just there's so much talent, and Green for the first time is healthy and playing like he's healthy. And
let me ask you this: is a guy like Alton Robinson or Collier on the market?
Collier
in combination with like Penny to get maybe a corner?
I would love to see that. If you can get Penny and Collier and turn that into a cornerback that's got some talent, do it. Because
I agree. I do.
You don't need either of those guys. I mean, Collier will get some time. Nobody stays healthy like the entire season. They're going to have guys get banged up. And when they do, Robinson's going to get a lot more snaps because he's like the next man up. And you're also at that point, and then Collier is going to get his opportunities too. But the fact that you've got Collier, who is a run-stuffing defensive end, he's a 5 tech who's really good at holding that edge and doing that, and doesn't generate as much pass rush. They were hoping, move him inside and let him generate it there. But as a defensive end, he doesn't generate much pass rush. This was a game in which their primary focus was to take out that running game, and they still didn't play him. They still didn't dress him, and that's concerning if you are LJ Collier.
So we've got 3 more topics to get through, and we're already pressing time. So let's hustle through these. Chris Carson, we had him written down to talk about. And then the reason that I had written him down was that it was just a nice affirmation to have Chris Carson back in the fold and watch him run with the authority that he ran, with the physicality and the mental space that he's in, ready to go. Signed a smaller deal than he really wanted to. Absolutely positive coming into the season. Seahawks were able to get him at the price that they were wanting to pay. But having Chris Carson back, especially with Penny being as fragile as he is proving to be, is just invaluable to this team. And the way that he ran, I thought was one of the most important aspects of the offensive performance overall.
Yeah, he just runs hard, runs people over. He's hard to tackle. And I know that people don't like when, we talk about like wearing teams down and that kind of stuff. But I think it's one of those things where when you've got a guy stopped and you've got him like set up to where you can just come in and get a stop, and instead he runs through you and gains an extra 3 yards, it's just demoralizing at some point. And at some point it's just really hard to, just continue to deal with those kind of hits and knowing that he's going to get yards, even if you play the play right. Defensive
back play overall, I think really needs to be talked about, because this is one of the, well, if not the largest concern that we had going into this week, going into the season, especially was where we were going to be at on the cornerbacks, how they were going to be able to integrate with the players that are kind of hybrid players that have the opportunity to, play kind of all over the place. The depth issues that we have there are just really not solidified very well, with Trey Flowers winning that spot, shipping out Witherspoon before the season even starts. DJ Reed was injured most of the preseason and just kind of came back right in time to start in this game. So a lot of uncertainty. How do you think it went?
Actually, it went pretty well. Reed was in on a bunch of plays. Flowers actually played pretty well. I was trying to watch him as best I could from the broadcast cam because the all 22 wasn't out yet. But his ability to be sticky in coverage and those kind of things was really nice to see. I think that overall the two of them played well, and the fact that they've got Amadi and Blair, who are also guys that came in the dime and nickel packages, and there's some rotation going on in there. It gave them another week, right? So they had all these moving parts and all of these cornerbacks that they just got right as the season was starting. Now they've got another week. They get to
Well, I was going to talk to you about scheme wise too. I noticed they played almost exclusively in cover 2, which meant Jamal Adams was back in coverage way more than we saw him last year overall, which gives both corners some protection on both sides of the field. What do you think about that as a factor? Maybe going forward,
it does require it gives them more protection over the top, but it also gives them responsibilities up at the line of scrimmage because you've got the flat, so that whole outside up near the line of scrimmage, that's your area of the zone.
So, when we were facing a team like the Colts, it didn't matter as much because of the lack of talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think it worked in terms of you gave them the safety help, but then you also gave them extra responsibilities up front by going cover 2 instead of cover 3. And it also puts a lot of pressure on Bobby Wagner in the middle of the field, but he is
and
Bobby
Jordan
Wagner.
Brooks too, in a sense. And Brooks has proven that I think he's up to the task. And he actually had the highest coverage grade, Jordan Brooks.
That doesn't surprise me. He looked outstanding.
And he did look outstanding, actually. So they held the Colts to 223 yards passing. We talked about Wentz being sacked and pressured and hit and all that kind of stuff, but Wentz actually held up okay for all of that pressure. He didn't throw any interceptions, had a couple touchdowns. I thought the defensive backs holding them to 223 yards, given the fact that we held their running game to only 60 yards overall as well, was a great first outing by the defense as a whole. I think it really spoke actually to our kind of analysis over the last 3 months, where we've said, okay, this defense is really going to lean on its pass rush. Nobody else really kind of recognized that, I don't think, just how coordinated that is between the front end and the back end of this defense, and the way that Pete Carroll likes to have it all play off one another. And I think this first outing against this particular offense, I think it worked exactly as they designed it.
Yeah. And like I said, every week that it works, even if it works just a little bit, but it's enough, gives them another week of stability as they integrate all these new faces into the defense and figure out what they've got. And so, if it was going to be bad, this was the week that it was going to be worse.
Yeah.
Because
I'm telling you too that we held the Colts to 4.7 yards a play, and you mentioned this in the first show of the week. That's something that the Colts only allowed that to happen to them 3 times last year. I mean, this is a pretty decent offense, and Wentz is not a bad guy. Okay, the last thing that we're going to talk about, and we're going to try to cruise through this pretty quick, is the offensive line play. Not a lot of uncertainty there, but we had the Posick injury in this last game. Fuller came in, played 75% of the snaps.
Well,
Lewis changed sides.
Yeah.
Lewis changed sides to the left guard this year. Shell was back in there for the first time. Almost everyone on the line seeing action for the first time this year so far. How do you think they held up against a pretty solid defensive front, including DeForest Buckner, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, DeForest Buckner is a very good player. Let's not, don't let anyone convince you otherwise. He is a very good player. I thought this team held up pretty well, except for at center. Fuller got the start.
They did allow 3 legit sacks and then 1 taken by Wilson, but other than that, not a lot of bad play.
Fuller looked terrible. He looked bad, but not terrible. Posey kind of looked terrible.
Do you think you're being a little too hard on him?
No.
I'm just asking, seriously.
When there was pressure given up, it was coming up the middle. It wasn't coming around the edge. It wasn't
Well,
beating a
DeForest
guard.
Buckner is a player, dude. I mean, he's probably the second. He'd probably be the number 2 defensive tackle that I would want on my team, other
Behind
than
Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Really? I mean, truly.
I mean, I could give you that. I mean, he's a guy he's just good. So I'll give you that. But they just struggled in the middle. Fuller didn't hold up well against that. They brought in Posick at one point, and he looked worse. And then he got hurt. They brought Fuller back in, and he's continued to struggle. So I'm concerned at center, but the other 4 guys looked good. I mean, Dwayne Brown didn't practice during the preseason and training camp, but then he got in, and you can tell he was ready mentally and physically to come in and play. He played well. The 2 guards played well. It was nice to see Wilson have some extra help up the middle, and even Shaw played well on the right side. So
I thought the pressure they did give up in the sacks was more miscommunication than missed assignment, just bad play,
just
individual.
Bad play. Yeah. So I was pleased. I mean, like I said, this is a good defensive line, and I thought overall they played pretty well. So I think that they need to see if they can give Fuller a little bit more help at center and make it a little easier on him. But other than that, they played I was happy with the offensive line play. I mean, look, the run 5.5 yards per rush, and Wilson had a lot of time. And yeah, sure, he was sacked 3 times, but none of them were that he can't even get to the top of his drop before he's already getting crushed. Like that's happened, in the past. They were ones where he dropped back and there's nothing there, and then he goes down.
And they were intermittent. I mean,
yeah.
In addition to those 3 sacks or whatever that he took, he took one where he slid down on purpose, but there were not a lot of pressures. There were not a lot of hits. So those were fairly isolated in and of themselves. I just thought it was a pretty decent performance overall. So I think we're going to head out of here. We've got another show at the end of the week where we're going to preview the Tennessee Titans visiting the Seattle Seahawks this coming Sunday. Should be a great game. The Titans fell to the Cardinals in their first home game of the season. Cardinals basically just had almost one of the games of the week, if I'm going to be completely honest. The Cardinals is a team that's
bad.
Titans look bad, but they're supposed to take that division after playing the Indianapolis Colts. It'll be a real interesting way to compare both teams. And another game that I was shocked with just briefly was the Green Bay Packers loss against the New Orleans Saints in Jacksonville. That game, I watched that game, and oh my gosh, did Rodgers look really bad. Like he looked completely discombobulated, didn't want to be there, was ineffective. The entire and more to the point, the New Orleans Saints defense looked stellar. Their defensive line and stuff. I was shocked. Like I was not expecting them to show up.
No, they looked great. And I think the Packers are in trouble because Rodgers looked disinterested at times. And after this offseason, it might be a thing. But one of the things,
I don't even know who wants that division now at this point.
Yeah. Then that whole division is everyone in that division lost. Everyone in the NFC West won. But I do want to, since you brought up that game, I want to say Jameis Winston looked great, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did look great.
I told you, he's got the physical talent. He has questionable decision makings, but
that still needs to play out, though. Sean
Payton is going to make him a better player by making it easier mentally in terms of what he has to do, and they're going to take advantage of his arm talent. I think it's a good matchup. He's still Jameis Winston.
That remains to be seen. I'm not saying that I'm going to see New Orleans in the playoffs. I'm just saying they beat the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers, that wasn't even a game, wasn't even close. It was just dismantling. So, anywho, let's get out of here. Let's get back at the end of the week, and we'll talk some more Seahawks football. We'll set up that game for you coming up. It's great talking to you, Keith. Always. Enjoy it. to the max. So find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. I'm at NW Seahawk. The show is Hawks Playbook on Twitter. Seahawksplaybook.com has all of the stuff that you like to see in one spot. You can also find us on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to our YouTube channel. 3 shows a week coming at you this season, so you don't want to miss a single one. Each one of them is coming in half-hour format or so. If you look at the clock on your player, you're going to see this one coming in a little long. We'll try to make sure that we stick to the shorter shows, though, as we go forward. So
we'll tighten this up.
Yep, eventually. So until next time, man, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Phil is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.